What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn deserve a lot of credit for the state that this football team is currently in, both from a positive and a negative perspective. Obviously the negative being the fact that, we haven't had a lot of team success recently. We haven't had a lot of victories. We haven't had a lot of wins. And unfortunately, that has led to some controversy and obviously has led to both Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia being on the hot seat this season. But if you're going to give them credit for the bad, you also have to give them credit for the good. And looking at the status of this team, looking at where this team sits right now from a talent level and an age level, this team in the Detroit Lions is set up to have a really, really bright future. This team has a lot of really young talent at a lot of really key positions. And, if we end up keeping these players and using them correctly, this team can be really, really good in the near future because Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia have set the team up to do so. Now, in today's video, I will be talking about how the Lions are set up for the future and how bright their future can be with a few minor adjustments. But before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it helps the channel out so much. So if you could just take those 2 seconds out of your day to do so, I would be greatly appreciative for it. But with all that being said, let's get into talking about this Detroit Lion future and how bright and how successful this team can be in the very near future. Now, even though the season might be a wash, right? Every single week, if the Lions lose a game, they get farther and farther out of playoff contention. And the season, every week just seems to be slipping a little bit more every single time the Lions lose a game, every single time the Lions take the field. The season seems to be slipping just a little bit farther from grasp every single time. And, unfortunately, I do think this season is a wash. I don't think the Lions are, I don't think the Lions are going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do enough to make some noise. They will win a couple more games this season for sure, but I don't think it will be enough to save Matt Patricia's job. I don't think it'll be enough to save Bob Quinn's job, and I don't think it is enough to warrant keeping them around for much longer. However, even if they leave, even if Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn leave, the legacy and the players that they have brought in will stay, and they will continue to help this franchise be very, very successful. Starting on the offensive side of the ball, obviously at the quarterback position, we have Matt Stafford, who is arguably a top 10 quarterback. On his best days, he's, arguably a top 5 quarterback. When Matthew Stafford is on, when he is having a really good day, he is almost unstoppable on the field. And when he's having his bad days, he's probably more around that 12th to 15th quarterback range. But, overall, talking about his career and how he plays throughout a season, I would put him about borderline top 10. And he still has a lot of really good seasons left. I think Matthew Stafford is only 31 years old. We're seeing more and more quarterbacks play into their late 30s, early 40s. And even Tom Brady is, playing into his mid 40s at this point. So, Matt Stafford still has a couple really good years left in the tank. He still has a lot of really good years left of football in him. Still has a really good arm. Still can make any throw in the book. Still can bomb it 70 yards down the field. I mean, Matthew Stafford is still a really good quarterback. Still a top 10, borderline top 10 quarterback. And, the Lions can keep him around for a lot longer. He still has a lot of good football in him. And even though Matt Stafford hasn't won a whole lot so far, he definitely has the talent level and definitely has the ability to be the quarterback to take your team far into the playoffs. Now, looking at the running back position, Kerryon Johnson is a talented young running back at only 23 years old. DeAndre Swift is also a very talented and young running back at only 21 years old. I mean, both of these guys have showed flashes in the past. Both of these guys have been 100-yard rushers in the past 2 seasons. Both of these guys have showed flashes and have showed that they can be the running backs for the future in this team. And then you have Jamal Agnew, who is a wide receiver running back kind of combination. Obviously led our team in rushing yards last week, but, he's only 25 years old as well, and he is a huge play threat. He has that breakaway speed that if he gets in the open field, if you're one-on-one with a defender, he can beat them 9 times out of 10 to the sideline and down to the end zone. So, our running back situation is actually pretty solid. I know some people aren't super high on Kerryon Johnson, but personally, I don't think Darrell Bevell is necessarily using him as well as Jim Bob Cooter did his rookie year. And I know that people don't like Jim Bob Cooter, but I think that, JBC, I think he used Kerryon much better. And I think that if we get a new offensive coordinator that can use Kerryon's talent balanced the right way, I think we'll see rookie Kerryon Johnson emerge yet again. And obviously, we've seen how talented DeAndre Swift is, with him going for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns a few weeks ago, which, as I've said multiple times, is something nobody has done since Barry Sanders. Looking at our wide receivers, they obviously have an elite young wide receiver in Kenny Golladay, who is only 27 years old and still has a lot of really good football left in him. They have Marvin Hall, a huge play threat that stepped up huge last week, again, is only 27 years old. Quintez Cephus is only 22 years old and can be a very reliable slot wide receiver for a very long time for the Detroit Lions. Obviously had a couple rookie struggles early in the season, hasn't really been playing a whole lot recently, but I think that he can still develop into a very, very solid slot wide receiver and be a very reliable target for the Lions quarterback for many years to come. Moving on, the Lions really only need a true wide receiver 2, a true real dominant wide receiver 2. Obviously we have Marvin Jones now, but Marvin Jones is starting to fall off a little bit. He's not quite the player he used to be, and he is not going to be any long-term success for the Detroit Lions. In this draft or in this incoming free agency, the Lions need to focus on getting that really big number 2 wide receiver. Obviously they need to pay Kenny Golladay first, but with some extra money, if they do have leftover money, they need to work on getting a wide receiver 2 to pair with Kenny Golladay. A guy of Marvin Jones caliber, but maybe a little bit younger than Marvin Jones. A guy that can do the same things, but can also be a Detroit Lion for a lot longer and still be in his prime a lot longer than Marvin Jones is going to be. Moving on to the tight end position. TJ Hawkinson is emerging as a really, really dominant tight end in the NFL. Obviously, he had 7 catches, a career high on Sunday. He's been really good. He has, I believe, 4 touchdowns on the year, which is top 10 amongst tight ends. He's only 23 years old. Jesse James is a reliable tight end, a reliable target. He's only 26. Hunter Bryant is a high potential tight end at only 22 years old. Isaac Nauta, who stepped up big recently and kind of been, not necessarily a huge role, but has been a, consistent threat on that offense, is only 23 years old. If you look at our skill positions, if you look at the guys that are out here for the Detroit Lions making plays on Sundays, guys like the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, the oldest player out of that bunch is Kenny Golladay at only 27 years old. I mean, if you look at all the talent we have that can be here for 3, 4, 5 years into the future, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, you could say Kerryon, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Agnew, Kenny Golladay, Marvin Hall, Quintez Cephus, Hawkinson, Jesse James, Hunter Bryant, and Isaac Nauta can all be here 5 years from now. They all have the talent. They all have the ability to be here for the next 5 years, for the next half decade. They can all be here growing and developing together. In a couple of years, next year, the year after that, if they are all still on this roster, they will all be bonded. They will all be knowing how each other play because they've been doing it for several years at that point. And this offense is set up to be very, very successful in the near future. And they are set up to be successful for a long time, the next 5, 6 years into the future. Now, looking at the offensive line, Taylor Decker is only 27 years old, but we locked him up for, I believe, 4 years after 2020. I believe he's locked up till the 2024 season, if I'm not mistaken, maybe longer than that. He's been playing very well this season. Obviously had a little bit of an injury scare last week and maybe didn't have his best game, but throughout this 2020 season, he has been really good, shutting down some of the best pass rushers the NFL has to offer. Jonah Jackson was a 3rd round selection. He's still locked up for 3 more years. He's only 22 years of age. He's only 23 years of age. I mean, he is a young, really good guard that will be with the Detroit Lions for a very long time, probably the next 7 to 10 years. I mean, Frank Ragnow is Frank Ragnow. He's only 24. He can definitely be a Detroit Lion for life. I mean, and that means he could play into his 30s, probably 31, 32. So that's another, 6, 7 years down the road for Frank Ragnow that he can be a Detroit Lion. Joe Dahl has been okay at times during the season, but he's only 27. He's a young guard. Big V has been playing that guard/tackle kind of rotation. He played tackle last week. He's played guard a lot throughout the NFL season this year. He's only 27 as well, and he's locked up for 4 more years. Tyrell Crosby has been really good. He's great depth and has stepped up really big this season. He's only 25 years old. This offensive line is really good. They've been playing really good football for the most part, and they are really, really young. I mean, the oldest player on this offensive line right now is Taylor Decker. Taylor Decker and Big V that are only 27 years old, and offensive linemen can play into their mid-30s at a high level. I mean, there is no reason that we should see a decline because of athletic ability or anything like that anytime soon from this line. And, this offensive line, if we do pay Frank Ragnow and Jonah Jackson when the time comes, and obviously Tyrell Crosby, this offensive line can be a solid, consistent unit for the next 3 to 4 years, just like the offensive weapons. I mean, all it's going to take for this Lions offense to explode is maybe a wide receiver 2 and a good offensive coordinator that can play to this team's strengths. I mean, we need an offensive coordinator that's going to let Stafford be a gunslinger, let him be borderline aggressive, borderline reckless at times, but let him go make his signature Matt Stafford plays. Let him thread the needle. Let him throw it into tight spaces. Let him be a gunslinger downfield. Let our wide receivers go down the field and make plays. Let them go up and make jump balls. Let them go up and win those 50-50s, those, jump balls in the end zone. Let them go win that and get our running backs into space. Move more laterally, because that's what helps carry on better. Him getting to the edge is better than him going straight up the middle. Obviously, DeAndre Swift in space is really, really good. So get DeAndre Swift in space. Jamal Agnew is a huge play threat in space as well. Getting him in space. An offensive coordinator that can come in and help these players and use these players as effectively as possible, playing to everybody's strength on the offense. If we get an offensive coordinator that can do that, whether that be Eric Bieniemy as our next head coach, but an offensive-minded head coach, or another offensive coordinator to come in and just use our players to their strengths, this offense can be really, really good and set up for long-term success for the next 3, 4, 5 years down the road. I mean, all of these players are, under 27. The oldest player on the offense right now that is really, at a key position is Matt Stafford at 31, but quarterbacks have been playing much longer than their 30s for quite a while now. Marvin Jones is 30. We might have to move on from him a little bit sooner than we like, but if your only concerns for the near future is a wide receiver 2, your offense is set up very, very well for the near future, and that is exactly what the Detroit Lions offense has shown and exactly how the Lions offense has been constructed in recent years. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the football, because it's not just the offensive side that is set up for success for long term. The defensive side of the football is set up for a lot of success for a very long time as well. Starting at the defensive line, Trey Flowers is a great pass rusher. He's our best pass rusher right now. He's locked up for a few more years. He's only 27 years old, so he's still young. He's still ready to go out and win some football games. He still has a lot of football left. Romeo Okwara has been arguably our best pass rusher this season. He's only 25 years of age. Deshaun Hand is a great pass rusher and a great defensive lineman when healthy. He's only 24. John Pennicini looks like an elite young product out of the draft and a late round steal for the Lions. He's only 23. Danny Shelton is only 27, and he is a fantastic run stopper and is really the heart and soul of the middle of that defensive line. So, that's 5 really good, really effective defensive linemen whose oldest member is 27 years old and is only getting better with age. That is only improving, and I have not seen any regression. I have not seen them slow down at all, any member of that offensive line, and those starting 5 are a really good starting 5 defensive line. You might say you want to get a little bit more depth here and there, that's fine, but looking at the starters and Deshaun Hand as a rotational guy, and obviously you have Julian Okwara who's still young, you have Austin Bryant who's still young, if both of them can get healthy, that is a really good rotation of young, talented defensive linemen that can be here for 3, 4, 5 years down the line, just like a lot of our offensive weapons. Linebacker is probably our weakest point when it comes to long-term success, but we still have Jared Davis on the roster, who is only 25 years old. He's a very talented young man. He's a very talented young linebacker that makes a lot of plays for the Detroit Lions when given the opportunity. Reggie Ragland is only 27 years old. He's been making his fair share of plays in this Lions defense. Jelani Tavai has struggled, but he's showed last year that he can be pretty good at a couple different things. And, if the defensive coordinator comes in and finds a good way to use Jelani Tavai, he's only 24 years old. Yes, you need a couple more linebackers. Maybe you go out and get that Micah Parsons, that Dylan Moses, that really highly touted linebacker in this draft, because this draft class does have a lot of good linebackers and wide receivers. So, we can go out in this free agents class, we can go out in this draft class and go out and get that really young, good linebacker, maybe 2 of them, get that young, really good wide receiver in maybe the mid rounds. And, those are really the 2 holes that aren't set up for the future right now. Moving on to the secondary, in cornerback specifically, obviously we have Amani Oruwariye, who is a true shutdown, developing into a lockdown cornerback at only 24 years old. Jeff Okudah is getting better every single game, and he has improved so much in his short time in the NFL. He's only 21. Justin Coleman is a fantastic slot cornerback. He is only 27. Mike Ford is good depth. He is only 25. Our cornerbacks are set up, especially our starting cornerbacks, they're set up for a lot of success for the long term. Our 2 boundary cornerbacks are 21 and 24. They're a rookie and a second-year cornerback. They are going to grow and develop together, and come their 3rd seasons, their 4th seasons in the NFL, they will be a true shutdown tandem. They will be probably one of the better 1-2 punches at cornerbacks that the NFL has to offer, and they are both here. They are both going to be here for a long long time. Moving on to the safeties, you got Tracy Walker at one safety and Jaron Kearse at another safety. Tracy Walker is a phenomenal young safety that's made so many plays for this Detroit Lions team. He's only 25 years old. Jaron Kearse is on a one-year contract, so we will have to re-sign him, but he's a great, versatile, big, fast, strong hitting safety. He's only 26 years old. I mean, this Lions team is super talented from top to bottom. They are very young. They are very talented. As I've said, all of these players that I have mentioned are under 27 years old except for Matt Stafford. You know, all of these young, talented playmakers can be in the Detroit Lions system for the next 3, 4, 5 seasons down the road. I mean, they can be here till the 2025-2026 season. And, you know, all of these players, assuming that the Lions, you know, can afford to pay them and assuming the Lions that want to keep these guys around, the Lions are set up in a really good position to have a bright future. And they can have all of these guys here. I mean, yes, some of these guys will be expensive. You know, Amani will likely be an expensive payment down the road. You know, Tracy Walker will likely be an expensive payment. Kenny Galladay will be an expensive payment. You know, Frank Ragnow will be expensive, but some of these guys, you know, Kerryon Johnson won't be that expensive. You know, Jamal Agnew won't be that expensive. You know, Marvin Hall and Quintez Cephas likely won't be that expensive down the road. You know, it's just, you know, there's going to be some expensive guys, but there's also going to be some cheaper guys that we can keep around. And if we can distribute the money, if we can find a way to keep a lot of this talent here, the Lions are in a fantastic position to get, you know, to have a lot of success for a very long time. I mean, if you are a team, right, and a majority of your skill positions